welcome back to another episode of Author Interviews with Jazz Prose. I'm your host, Sai, and today we're here with the lovely Raquel Smith for one of her new works called A Garden Grows Where Fairies Roam. Miss Smith, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's here in Houston, it's looking like, well, it's a little, it looked like it may rain. So, but we need water every now
Yeah,
and then, right?
yeah. We love
So,
the rain. The trees,
yeah.
the grass, everything loves the rain.
Yeah, it all works together. Well, we're here to talk about your new book, okay? And let me go here to this slide here so they can see the beautiful cover. I love this cover. And you guys know that I like to start with covers. So tell us, how did you come about choosing this beautiful cover for your book?
Okay. So I came up with the cover because I just wanted it to be like a beautiful couple just gazing, looking at each other. But the whole premise of the book is this fairy is not interfering in the love story, but she's like making moments happen for them to cross paths with each other. So that's why she's in the background, kind of overlooking the love story. So that's the cover. And initially, I had a little more going on in the background, but I just wanted the focus to be on the love story overall. So that's why I kind of took everything else out and just kept the couple facing each other.
Hey, I love that. And I don't know about y'all, but I need that fairy. I need a fairy.
We all need a fairy.
I love that. I love that so much. It's a lot of elements in here that I do like, so I can't wait to get into the story. So before we get into that though, tell us a little bit about how you got into the writing world and a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I got into the writing world because I am a widow. My husband died, and I would meet people and they would be like, oh, just general conversation. Are you married? And I'd be like, no, I'm a widow. And oh my God, what happened? And, I would get into a little bit of my story and people would be like, I can't believe that happened to you. You should write a book. And I always been a writer, a journaler. I wrote everything down. And, a few times a year, I go back through my journal and look at the things that I write down. And then I was like, you know what? I could kind of take what I'm writing from my day-to-day experiences and turn it into a book. And that became my first project. So I basically made a guide for the first year of grief, basically focusing on how to get through the first holidays, like the first birthday, your first anniversary. And I was reading my experiences when I was going through that period of my life. And a few years after, I kind of put everything together and I made a book. And that was my first introduction to like writing something that I presented to other people for reading. And that was how it all started.
Yeah, wow. First of all, I'm sorry for your loss. I know that can be very hard. And we had another lady come on here and she wrote about grief, and I was so appreciative of that because it's something that unfortunately I think we all have to deal with at some point. And usually, it's a time where as a person who, when I hear the news of someone passing, it's hard to know how to reach out to people because you want to give them their space, but at the same time, you want to show that you're there. So I think writing about that, especially, from your experience, creating something that you saw a need for, right? So, we thank you for that because, we need that. And I think nowadays we're more open to talking about grief, mental health, all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that you took the time to pen that. And keeping a journal, I love that. I think that is so, a lot of people say it's cathartic, like it's good for therapy and just getting it out, but then turning around and saying, you know what, let me use this to help other people, I think is also amazing as well. So yeah. And then when we talk about the book specifically, let's get into A Garden Grows Where Fairies Roam. Tell us, just tell us what you want to tell us about it, and then I'll ask you questions after.
Okay, so this was my first fun project because a lot of the other things I was doing was centered around grief. And I wanted to do something where every time I go out, I'm not talking about death and dying, So I started with this project, and I start out with her. She's a widow, but we're going to give this widow a happy ending. So I knew how I wanted the book to start, and I knew how I wanted it to end. And I just kind of outlined all the spaces in between. So I don't know. When I was writing this book, I was sitting down like, okay, as a widow, what would you want someone that comes into your life to be your romantic partner? What would you want them to be like? And I wrote down those elements of his character. And then I thought about, okay, what is he gonna do to make her fall in love with him? Because as a widow, it's really hard to fall in love with another person. They have to really be outstanding, because there's always the comparison of the person that you love, and then when someone else comes around, it's not an easy process. So I wrote a lot about her thought process and the things that was happening in her world, and how he was kind of integrated into her life with a little bit of magic. So I think it's a great story, not just because I wrote it, because it's like it gives a happy ending. And I wanted to see someone who had such a tragic beginning have a happy ending, you know.
I can definitely, I can't wait to read it. I think, you know, just off of the hearing what the story is about already, the characters are very complex, I would say, you know, and I can imagine the emotions the characters would have to go through, where it's like, you know, maybe, did you write about her when you were doing this, maybe feeling a little guilty about like, you know, starting a new love? Like, yeah, I would, that's what I would, you know, as a writer, when I'm thinking about, you know, of how I would write it. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then, so how did you incorporate the magic aspect, like with the fairy? Like, how did you say, I want to add this in there as well?
Because okay, so that was easy for me, because in a world where we have so much going on, it's so challenging, because our
And
widow is a single mom, and there was so many. I thought like, okay, how would I want my husband to protect me or guide me, even though he's not physically present? So
right.
the fairy is a representative of her husband from the
Okay.
afterlife. He sends her like, take care of my family, like make sure my daughter has a good role
Mhm.
model. I can't be there, but I want someone to
Mhm.
protect them. So the fairy doesn't appear and kind of like just pop up like, hey girl, I'm your fairy and I'm gonna
Mhm.
find you a man. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, like you have to gently introduce the fairy into the story. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so, I can like, for me as a writer, when I read something, or I'm already thinking visually,
mhm.
and I can already, I can see it already, like on as a show, a movie, something like that. Because I when I think about that, I think initially I thought like The Secret Garden. I don't know if you know what that movie is. And then I thought of like kind of like the Lifetime movies, like a slow kind of pace, but
Mhm.
yeah, that's exciting. Is that something that you would be interested in doing, is turning your books into films?
Absolutely. So what
Yeah.
when I was writing this book, I kind of I put on the computer, and I let the computer read the story to me, and I kind of visualized it as a movie in my head. And I made it a slow burn, because I didn't want the book to be based on physical attraction. I wanted it to be based on him loving her authentically for the person that she is, seeing her as a mom, because I think as a woman, that's what we all want for ourselves. We want someone who is physically attracted to us, of course, but we want someone who loves us like deeply. And then I thought
Mhm.
about, what would a great first date be like? When he finally gets her on a date, what would I want a man to do for me on a first date? So I had all kinds of date scenarios. I was on Instagram looking at, okay, where are people going on dates nowadays? And I'm just looking, I was like, okay, I got the perfect date for him to take her on,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I think that for me, that's the fun part, is the researching and building that world. And then there was something else I wanted to ask. The garden, because I feel
Mhm.
like, how did you come up with the garden, as far, because I feel like people garden for different reasons.
Mhm.
But one thing that just pops in my head when I think of a garden is like peace.
Mhm.
So how did you already know like it was going to be set in a garden, or did you know like how did you start off with the idea though, like of
Well, the idea of the garden came
yeah.
because I started gardening, like, well, trying my hand
Okay.
at gardening. Like, I'm a beginner, so and I'm learning every year. I'm getting better. So the garden does represent peace and tranquility and a lot of I and a lot of religions, we believe that, taking care of the earth is a
Mhm.
big responsibility for us as human beings. And, when you grow something, like when you put a seed in the ground and you watch it as a seed and then you see what comes from it, it's like a representation of, if you don't believe in anything, if you don't believe in God in any other instance, when you see what this is like, this is God in the form of you can feel it, you can touch it, it's tangible. This is something that we can't
Yeah.
deny. Like, this was something that was a seed and we planted it and it grew something. And this is so beautiful and so amazing. And that is a
Mhm.
representation of the love. Like, when he met her, there was nothing there. And she really just it took a lot of tending to her. Like, he had to really like plant the seed and really pay attention and nurture her spirit and nurture the relationship, and then something grew from it. So that was the whole premise of the garden.
I love that. We have to clock that. You know, that takes time to develop, guys. And I just love that. I love that. I love that. When there, you can tell there was a lot of thought and like, and then, well, let's talk about that. When it comes to your writing process, though, what type of writer are you? Does it come like easily for you, or and then I want to know, how long did it take you to like write the book? So like, what is your process, and then how long did it take to write the book?
My process is I think of something in the car and I'm like making a note in my phone, pull over,
Mhm.
write a note. I have notes in my purse, notes next to my bed, and I
Okay.
work on multiple projects at the
Mhm.
same time. Like, I'm like writing, oh my God, I got another idea. Let me write this down. So I'm all over the place. So my writing process is a little chaotic, but it works for me because once I get an idea, I'm like, I got to get up. Sometimes I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, oh, I got to get this out before I forget. And I'm just like typing, typing, typing. And then some days I'm like, I don't feel like writing today, and I skip it. And then the next day I'm writing 4 or 5 days straight. I got to take a day off from work because I do have a full-time job and I have children and I'm running the house over here. So it's like, I try to write every day. And one of my very important processes is I do not read the entire story back until I finish it. Like, I just put everything together, and then when I finish, I go back and read everything because I
Okay.
want to just get all those thoughts in there. And then sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, this makes zero sense. Let me take it out. Or this
Mhm.
doesn't shouldn't go here. Let me move it here. But I'm just like, once I
Yeah.
get an idea, I'm like, okay, let's get this out. Let's
Yeah.
on
Mhm.
put it in there. And when I'm talking to people, I'm like, oh, you just reminded me of something. Hold
Yeah.
on 1 second. And I'm like writing it down. And
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's definitely there's I'm kind of like that, so I'm all over the place. I have a lot of sticky notes and I do work on multiple different books at a time, but I do think there's a method to the madness. Because for me, that's just how my brain works. And then, but how long did you say it took you from start to finish to
I'll
write?
say about 8 months.
Okay, that's good. I feel like that's a good amount of time. For me, oh my God, I think, let me not say that on but I'm getting better. But for me, honestly, I think a big portion of it is, and what's her name? Author Black Queen. She will be so mad at me for saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I have a lot going on, like finding the time.
Mm-hmm.
As a mother, I'm a teacher. I literally have like 150 students, and I'm a reading teacher. So I'm like grading their papers. So yeah, finding the time, hopefully in the summer, but it takes me a while. But I will say, like, and we'll talk about your children because you have a children's book as well. Now,
Yeah.
those I can put out quickly. I feel like, because it's a shorter book and it's
Yeah.
plot is a little easier. But yeah, it I have to literally, God has to talk to me to sit down and write, or I just have to like just be in it. But 8 months is I
Yeah.
feel like a good amount of time. When you compare writing this book, okay, to let's say your children's book, what would you notice is maybe like a little different for you, just in any
Okay.
sense?
So writing a children's book for me is you have to be very you have to say things the right way with children, like especially when you're dealing with a heavy topic like grief or death. It's like you just can't go in and write the way you would write for an adult.
Yeah.
And with children's books, there's like the language. You have to make sure that the kids understand and they get the point. And I feel like there's always a moral. There has to be a lesson that they come away from the story with. For
Yeah.
adults, it's like, it can be fun, it could be spicy, it could be
Mhm,
whatever you
mhm.
want it to be. But for kids, it's like if they're reading, it's for a purpose, and you want them to come away with a lesson if they took the time to sit down and read. But for me,
Mhm.
every project is just as important because for me, it's intimate. My writing is intimate. Like when I share something with you, like, here, I want you to read this. It's like letting you read my diary. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's for me, it's very intimate. Even if it's a children's book, it's like I'm looking at my kids like, do you guys like it? Is it good?
Yeah.
Did you get
Yeah.
what I was saying? Like, do you and they're like, yeah, we get it, mom. So I feel like I was
Yeah.
overthinking it because sometimes when I read in children's books with my daughter, we read a book about dinosaurs and tacos the other night, and I was just like,
Yeah.
it was so
They like
simple.
that.
Yeah, but she loved it. She was like, "This is such a great book," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm overthinking this children's book thing. I
Yeah.
really need to simplify it a lot." And my daughter came downstairs.
Mhm.
She's like, "Mommy, I wrote my first book," and I'm like, "What is your book about?" So we sat
Mm.
down, and she
Mhm.
came up with her storyline, what she wanted her book to be about. Couldn't get any sleep that night. I stayed up all night. I wrote the whole script for the characters. I got the book out. I sent it to the lady that did the
Mhm.
illustrations for my first book. Like, hey, can you come up with some pictures for this book for my daughter? And she was like, "Oh, this is great. I'll have them to you by
Mhm.
tomorrow." And boom, we
Yeah.
got the children's book. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And the role model, I can say the same thing for my son. I was trying, oh my God, he's a very picky eater. So I was like, okay, we're gonna write about a book about you turning into the only type of foods you want to eat because oh
Oh
my
my
God.
goodness, that's a great story.
Yeah. And so he was like, okay. But so talking about finding the artwork for your
Mhm.
book, how is that process for you? Do you feel like it's easier? How did you go about doing that?
That is difficult because
Okay.
I cannot draw stick people. But I have a vision in my head of what I want the characters to look like,
Mhm.
and it is so hard because you hire people, you spend your money. If you're not a writer that has a big publishing house behind you, and
Mhm.
you're using your own resources, and you're paying people, and they're coming
Yeah.
up with stuff that you're like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
It can be a little overwhelming, and then it's like the
Mhm.
people online will tear you apart. This is AI. This is this, and then you
Yeah.
got digital images, and then you got
Yeah. Yeah.
Canva Pro, and then you got to learn how to use all this stuff. It is so sometimes I'm up just literally because I'm a person. I feel like if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, but you can't do
Yeah.
everything yourself. You
Yeah.
have to
You cannot.
outsource
Mhm.
to other people, and you have to really like
Yeah.
find good people. And that's why it's good to have a good writing community so you can call someone and say, hey, who did you use to do your cover? How did you do this? And that's what
Mhm.
I've been doing. I've been just trying to build a community and use my resources and ask for help when I need it, and you know
Yeah.
figure it out
And
as I
that's
go along. And I'm never too proud to say, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? You know,
right. Yeah.
show
Yeah.
me the way. If this is wrong, give me a suggestion of
Yeah.
who can I go to? Suggest someone, because you reach out to people like, oh, I need 18 images for children's book. They're like, oh yeah, that'll be $5,000. Like, okay, I'll call you back. Thank you for the
Let me
information.
think.
Oh yeah, 8,000.
Yeah.
And I mean,
It.
not to take away from the work that they do. I understand it, but
Yeah.
at the same time, how an indie author, no ma'am, I don't have $5,000 to give you
Yeah.
18
Yeah.
pictures. Sorry. So if I can
Yeah.
find, so I've been using
Mhm.
every platform I can find. And then not to
Mhm.
mention all the scammers that are out there that are like, oh, I can give you
Yeah.
some. Yeah, it's a mess, but it's a work in
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah. It can be a lot. And I I get it. And then some of the people, I do like Fiverr. Like back in the day when I first started, well, the first books I ever put out was for kids, for my daughter. It was like 2012. And I literally did every single sketch in adult. Well, I did it on paper, then did it. So I do illustrate, and I've had people, in this business with books and stuff. Because I'm a very creative person, I had to tell myself, like you said, I cannot do everything. Like, yes, I can illustrate this book, but I'm up against time. And then I have family
Right.
members, oh, can you draw this? And it's like, I would love to, but when am I going to do that? Like, I don't have the time to do it.
Right.
So I've had to, like you said, lean into my community. And I think that's how we support each other, right? So here at Jazz Prose, we do try to have like a hub of different resources as you guys, watching these videos, listening. I do these videos to help the people, so that people can see what it takes to be a writer, what goes on behind the scenes, the process, to give an insight. And just sharing. And I think, the people that come on here, like yourself, have really important messages to share. And going into this next slide, which is advice for aspiring authors. So what advice would you give to someone who, well, any advice, I won't make it specific, but what advice would you give to aspiring authors, people who want to put out a book?
Oh, I have so much advice. Okay, so this is the most important piece of advice that I would give to someone who's just starting out. My first book, when I let someone edit the book, they made a lot of changes to the book that I don't necessarily agree with. And because I was new and I didn't know any better, I kind of just went with it. And they're like, oh, you should put case studies in for this and that. And, I wrote the book because when I was a new widow, I was looking for a book that I could read that could kind of, from the perspective of someone who had lost a spouse that needed some support or just some guidance on what to do. And I would not have been interested in reading case studies. As a new widow. So I didn't feel like that was important. Now there's a lot of science behind the case studies about what grief does to your body and how you feel. And no, you're not crazy for forgetting everything during that process. But so that's important information to put in the book, but it just wasn't what I wanted. And I didn't really advocate for myself in that instance. I kind of just went with what the professional opinion of someone else, like, okay, so we're going to do this. And I just kind of said, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. And then when I was reading the book back, I was like, no, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. And that's, don't ever lose your voice. When you write something, your audience will find you. Some people may read it and they be like, I don't like the language she's using, or this doesn't speak to me. But the people that you're writing for, your audience will find you, and stay true to your voice. And if something does not feel right, don't do it. So I had to go back and come out with a second edition because I was like, yeah, I'm changing it,
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with that completely. And I think that's the good thing about being an indie author, is like you have the control of doing that and sticking to what you were spoken to. Like, this is what I want to speak to. And yeah, I don't want to read about statistics, baby. I need comfort right now.
Right.
No, I wouldn't. That's a totally different topic. And, you can't please everybody, right? But I think, even for me as a reader, when I read a lot of nonfiction books, a lot. I take what I need. And if I don't need it, then I just skip over that. I think there's so many interesting things, jewels, facts in a book that just because I don't like this one paragraph or this one part, it doesn't mean that, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I would say. Yeah, as far as with your process, do you have, when it comes to publishing, really quickly, I forgot to ask that. Do you have it on all platforms? Would you suggest it to be on all platforms, or?
Yeah, so I'm on Ingram Spark, Amazon, and Barnes and Noble. So those are the main ones that I use. And then I have my own website. So I mean, that's the most profitable for indie authors, when you go to their website and order directly from them. So anything that I put out can be ordered directly from my author's website. And
Okay, I love that. I've been hearing a lot about Ingram Spark, so I definitely am going to be doing research on that. But yes, I love that. Well, I feel like it's our trivia time, Miss Smith. Okay, so it's not night, but it's okay. So this is author edition of Would You Rather. Okay.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna have you pick a number 1 through 4.
I'm gonna go with 4.
Okay, good. 4. People rarely pick that. 3 and 4. Okay, so would you rather lose the last chapter of your book, like it accidentally got deleted, or the first 3?
I would rather the first 3.
The first 3. Okay, why not the last?
The
Why not
last
the
chapter
first?
was just like
It is, yeah.
the way it ended is like on
Yeah.
such a high note. It was just I was just so happy for
Mhm.
her and the experience. I wouldn't change that. The first 3
Yeah.
chapters, I could have started that book 10 different ways.
Okay.
But the
Yeah.
way it ended, I definitely wanted it to end on a high note with her feeling good, with the family
Mhm.
element, with the element of magic. Like the way the
Yeah.
book, it brings a little bit of everything
Yeah.
together.
Okay. All right. I can see that. Yeah. For me, I feel like there's so much pressure. There's pressure in the first chapter too, but I feel like readers are a little more forgiving with the first chapter. But that last chapter, they
Mhm.
want they're like, it needs to we need to nail this.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah. 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 So what would you say is next for you? What do you have coming up?
Ooh. So I am even this book is gonna be a part of a series. So I haven't started working on the second book yet. I am just gonna give it some time to marinate and I want to get feedback from people after they read the book. So
Mhm.
anyone that buys the book, I really want you to leave a review because the fate of the second book is hinging on the feedback that I get from the first book. Um I have an idea of where I want to go with the second book, but I'm just
Mhm.
gonna wait because I have so many things happening right now that I just
Yes.
got to slow down a little bit and kind of,
Yeah.
just let the
Take it
projects land.
easy.
And then I'm gonna start working on my second book, where that's gonna be the only thing I work on. I'm gonna devote a lot of time to it because I want Jada's story to be, I want it
Yeah.
to evolve and grow, and I want her
Mhm.
one of those characters where people are like, oh, Jada, I know that character from the garden. Oh yeah, I know her. So I want,
Yeah. Yeah.
develop into a story like that.
I love that. I love that. I think you've got an amazing book and series on your hands. I think a lot of people will love this book.
I
Speaking of
hope.
which, yeah, they will. They will. Where can they find it?
It's on Amazon right now. It's
Okay.
going to be on Barnes and Noble and Ingram Spark as well. And of course, at
Okay.
the website.
Yes, and we will have all of those links in the description box for you guys to check out. Okay. Well, Miss Smith, is there anything else you want to share with the readers, listeners out here before
No,
we?
that's it. I
That's
just
it.
want to thank you for your time. This
Oh,
was fun.
absolutely.
This was amazing. And everybody,
Absolutely.
I do a monthly blog. So every month
Okay.
I do a blog. It's centered around grief and some resources for
Mhm.
widows, like things like checklists and
Okay.
journal prompts and all kinds of things. So you can check
Mhm.
that out. It's a really helpful resource if you know anyone that is going through a grief process. And yeah,
Okay,
I'll
well, we
be
love that. Yeah, that's very queen behavior. I love that. Keep that up. Y'all check out that. Like I said, the links will be in the description box. Well, guys, we thank you for tuning in, Miss Smith. We thank you for stopping by, guys. Definitely check out A Garden Grows Where Fairies Roam. Okay, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.